Hey everyone, it's Dina. So I wanted to show you guys how you can trace a clip art or graphic image so that you get your starting lines for creating your cookie cutters. And what you want to do is find your clip art, make sure that it's commercially purchased and that you have the appropriate rights to do this. And what I do is I simply drag and drop that onto my workspace. As simple as that. And we're just going to get rid of that extra one there. Then I open up my trace window, which is this little butterfly or piece of toast looking icon on the far right. Make sure it's on the butterfly, click select trace area, and then draw my box around the shape. And what you want to do is fill that with as much yellow in that shape that you possibly can without making it a big block or square of yellow. So you want to make sure that just the image is in yellow here. And you're going to come down and click on Trace Outer Edge. And what that's going to do is get you your outside lines. And at this point, if you wanted to clean up some of those areas, you can do that by double clicking on the design or on the line there. And you can see that all of these squares here are your edit points. And you can also see that it pulls up the panel for point editing. And what I'm going to do is zoom in using the Alt key. I'm just going to press and hold that and then scroll in on the design so that I can get a closer view of these areas. And you can see that there are some places where you don't actually need them, and it's just a little bit better to clean these up and get them as clean as you possibly can. So you're going to go through, you're going to get rid of some of these extra lines. To move left and right on your screen, hold your Control key down and then use the wheel on your mouse to scroll left or right. Okay. And again, you're going to use the delete point. You just want to get some of these cleaned up a little bit. And again, if you want to zoom out, zoom in. Now I'm not going to go and do a whole lot of these, but you kind of get the idea as you want to keep cleaning this up and get it as clean as you possibly can. It's like there's really no need to have all of these extra points in here on a straight line. Now you may need some of these on curves, that way the software knows that it's actually a curve and not a corner or a straight line. But it doesn't look too bad, honestly. Like here's an area right here that you could probably clean up. It's just got some jaggedness to it. You can see the curve will have multiple edit points, and you definitely want to keep that unless you want a true V point instead of something that's more rounded. Okay, so that's the general idea. Now once you get your shape the way that you want it, if you want to take it back to your normal screen size, use this icon right here with the rectangle and the plus sign in it. It's going to take you back to the fit window. You can get rid of your point editing panel just by clicking the X in the upper right of that panel. And now you want to resize your design. Now when you're working with 3D printers, most of the time they're going to be set to millimeters. And if you want to change the design, the size aspects for that, you can go to the gear icon in the bottom right, and where it says unit of measurement, change it from auto inches to millimeters. And then just click OK, and then that will show you in millimeters what that sizing will be. And you also have to keep in mind when you're designing your cutters, what do you want that size to be, and keep it in proportion to each other. And when you're doing that, if you notice up here, the width and the height right here, there's a lock icon to the right of that, and that's going to lock the aspect. So if I change, let's say, the width from 160 to, let's say, 150, it's automatically 150. Sorry, my finger stuttered. It's automatically going to adjust the height because it's in, you know, it's the same constraint. Now, if I were to unlock that, then that gives me the ability to key in the exact dimensions that I would like for this to be. Just keep in mind that if you don't have it in a ratio that coordinates well, you could have a really stretched out cutter in one way or the other, just depending on what those size measurements are. Okay. As you work with this a little bit more, you'll become more familiar with how that can work together. The other thing that I'd like to recommend is when you're working with this design, once you have your item traced, then you want to size it the way that you want your cutter to be when it's printed, okay? Because that's just going to save you some time later on down the road. So if I wanted this to be a 4-inch cutter at the widest point, if you look at your dimensions, 116 is about a 4.5-inch cutter height-wise from top to bottom, okay, from the highest to the lowest point. And then 150 is a little bit under 6 inches. And again, you'll get these as you go along. There's a way that you can find the conversions through Google. I wrote a little shortcut list. I have it taped up on my desk here so that I can easily look at the ones that I don't use as frequently as the others. But let's say that I want the width to be 4 inches. I can come up here with my item selected, change this to 101.6, which is 4 inches, press enter. You can see that it changed my height to 78.8, which is just a tad bit over a 3-inch size, okay? So now this cutter will be 4 inches in width and a little bit over 3 inches in height. Okay, so that's my starting point. Now at this time, we're done with the trace, so you can close out of that pop-up window, that panel. And now we want to offset. So you're going to find your star icon on the right side to open up the offset panel. And with your image highlighted, your traced design highlighted, you're going to come over here to offset. And you can see that it's in millimeters. And this is where you're going to take your sizing and how you want your cut edge to be sized, how you want your handle to be sized, and any of those extra components, those connector pieces, or however you're going to design this. So you also have to keep your nozzle size in mind when you're designing your offsets. My nozzle is a 0.4, so I want to make sure that I'm creating those in increments of 0.4. So my cut edge is a 0.8 millimeter. So that's going to be my first offset. And let me just zoom in here so you can actually see what's going on. So now you can see I have two lines. I have on the inner my original traced line. On the outside is the offset that I just applied. And now what I want to do is create my handle. So I'm going to go back over here to offset, and I'm going to make this a 5 millimeter. So you can see as if you were looking down on your cutter, you have your cut edge, which is this inner portion here, your handle, which is this outer line here. And now if you wanted to go in and you wanted to make those connector pieces and so on, you can continue using the offset or the inset to create those pieces. So let's say that I wanted to make a piece that connects my cut edge to my handle, kind of make it a little bit more sturdy. I could use my internal offset on that, and then I can continue to increase that. Notice how though it's a little weird. It makes it a little rounded in areas. and I may not want it that way. So this is where you can come in and you can select that area and you can give that an offset. Let's say that I want that 0.4. Okay, so now I have, let me zoom in just a little bit more. Sorry for the noise, guys. My office is right by the street here. So I have my cut edge, which is this first two lines here, the inner and then the next one here. And then I have the next line here, which was my connector piece, and then this was my handle. So once you get all of your pieces together, or all of your lines the way that you want them, you're then going to make everything a compound path. You can highlight the entire design, use Control A or Command A if you're on a Mac, and then you're going to right click and do Make Compound Path. Or if you're a keystroke person, Control E. Okay, either way will. Forgot my other image was over there. So don't use Control A if you have something else on your keyboard or on your workspace here. So I have my items highlighted here, Control E or right click to make a compound path. Okay. So let's go over all those again. This is my starting image. Select it, go to offset, key in your offset size for your cut edge, and then press enter. You don't have to click apply. Don't do anything at this point, just leave it with the bounding box around it so that you see these lines. That's your bounding box. Go to offset again, key in the size that you want your handle, press enter, and now you have your cutter, okay, in the simplest form. Select those pieces, right click, make compound path. Okay, at this point, just get rid of this design here. At this point, my cutter is the size that I want it in the opening. Okay, it's the 3x4, and you can see that there's extra dimensions on this because I've added my cut edge as well as my handle. So that's going to make that a little bit bigger than my starting point. So that's why I say start with your first image with the size that you want for your actual cut. Then you're going to do a file, save as, save to hard drive, and then depending on the software version that you're using, you may not have the ability to save it as an SVG. Okay, if you're using Business Edition, you will have the SVG option. If you are using Designer Edition or the free version at that, then you really only have the ability to save it as a Studio 3, and then you have to convert that to an SVG. Okay. Pick a location wherever you want to put that, name it, save it, and then that's your cookie cutter design. And then you can bring that into the software where you could extrude your shapes, save that file so that you can then take it to your printer to print and slice and do all that fun stuff. If you guys have any questions, if this was confusing for you and you need some clarification, just let me know. Hope you found this helpful.